everyone. This is Everyday Expressions, and I'm Erin Thompson. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm excited to participate in Altenew's video hop for the latest release, Modern and Edgy. Today, I'm sharing the new Spoon Daisy 3D embossing folder, and I've watercolored it with Altenew's watercolor brush markers. So I've begun by inking up the flat side, I guess you would call that the negative part of the inside embossing folder with Persian blue ink. And you can see that I inked it up really well. And then I spritzed it with water and then took a 6x6 piece of Bristol Strathmore Smooth mixed media cardstock. And I actually misted it on both sides with water also before I put it into the embossing folder and ran it through my die machine. And look what comes out. It's a beautiful panel. It gives the background color for the embossed image. Then it leaves mostly white space that then we can watercolor on for the daisy. I think the takeaway I really want everybody to understand is how forgiving the Altenew watercolor brush markers are. I am by no means an expert at watercoloring, and I really think my video kind of shows that, because what I'm doing here is I'm kind of working my way through it, and some things work better than others. And what I do is I begin by laying down some water on the first few petals with my Altenew water brush. And then I go in with the marker, and sometimes if you squeeze it just a little bit, you can get a drop of ink, and you'll see that on the paper in the upper right-hand corner. If I'm not getting enough ink coming through the brush, sometimes you'll see me dip into that and then go to the daisy. And then sometimes there's enough ink that's coming out and I can add it that way. But it's kind of a controlled measure that way. I feel like then I can add more color if I need to, or I can go back into it with the water brush. And so you'll see sometimes I go in with the water marker and then I go move the ink around with the water brush. You'll also note that I use a paper towel. You can see it there in the left hand side of the screen. And I often use that to remove excess water from the water brush, to clean off maybe any excess ink on the water brush marker, and also to dab up any extra water or ink, especially if you make a mistake. It's like the magic eraser. You just blot it up and the watercoloring is very forgiving. You'll note when you watch the pros, like Debbie Hughes, Aram from the Altenew design team. They are fabulous watercolors, and I highly recommend watching them. That's where I watch them and I'm just amazed at their artistry and technique. And it's really where I learn the most and then try to incorporate some of their techniques into what I'm trying here. And so then you see, I go in with the water brush and I move the ink around and I kind of let it pool where I want the color more intense. And then I pull it and soften it so that it's a little bit more organic in other areas. So what I've done in the first section is, you see, I basically just laid down a light wash of a yellow color. And what I'm doing, you'll see throughout the rest of the video, is I'm just laying down more and more color. I let those areas dry, and then I'll go back in with really the darker colors to add shading and more intensity. And I think the lesson that I learned in working on this daisy is not to be afraid of the color in the beginning. I think I probably added a lot more steps than I needed to. And that might be the biggest takeaway from this tutorial is, don't be afraid to go in with that color. It's not a bad idea to lay down the lighter color first, but maybe I'll be a little bit more bold next time and we'll see how it goes. But I love, like I said, how the ink moves from these watercolor brush markers, and it did let me kind of go slowly at my own pace in learning how these work. So what I learned to do in this is kind of go into some of the folds and what would normally in my mind be a more shaded area. And that's where you see me putting down some of the ink here and then moving it around, definitely getting a feel for the fabulous folds and embossed areas from the folder. It really kind of guides me in what would be a lighter colored area where the sun would probably be hitting it more, and then the more shaded areas of the petals. I'm going to play a little bit of background music and let you just watch the rest of this, and then I'll jump back in to tell you how I finished this card. I have to tell you that I had paused the video to step away. So when I came back, I forgot to start the video again so that you could see how I finished this card. So after trimming the card down to an A2 size, I actually took another sentiment stamp and very lightly using the Persian ink, stamped here and there on the background for interest. Next, I added paint splatters in black and white and ended with a sentiment. What do you think? Thank you so much for joining me in my craft room today. Don't forget to hop along with Altenew and the other designers and leave comments for your chance to win an Altenew gift certificate.